One of a multitude of topics discussed in Mark Bauerlein's book, The Dumbest Generation, is something known as intelligence bifurcation, perceived increase in intelligence in one area while the other suffers. Around 2005, as the shift in web content moved toward higher customization, multiple journalistic and scholastic sources trumpeted the virtues of a new golden age of learning. The computer and internet were said to represent a new educational frontier. After the digital revolution, it was said the ideal classroom would be entirely paperless. Children have access to any book and article on the internet, receive instant homework help from their teachers, and loads of educational software. This educational software is often sold to kids under the facade of a video game. However, with some scholars advocating the use of video game software as educational, regardless of the content, it would seem that we may have finally succeeded in blurring the line between entertainment and education to society's gain. This idea can be concisely summed up by a look at an Apple advertising campaign in the mid-2000s. The tagline, "The only book you'll need." And on some level, there certainly is truth in advertising. An entire section of The Dumbest Generation is dedicated to a discussion of increased illiteracy, the ability to read, but the choice not to. In record numbers, people across all age groups have been abandoning the practice of sitting down and reading anything at all. As you can see, young adults are leading the way in abandoning reading. And it isn't just reading that young adults are abandoning. Entire old measurements of academic achievement are stagnating or decaying for those in the 18 to 29-year-old age group, be it history, math, fine arts education. Young people today know less than they once did. Bauerlein asserts that this sudden dumbing down of society, with the young adults at the forefront, is a consequence of the permeation of all these screens into our lives. Television, computers, cell phones, all of it. Instant information availability has hindered the way we learn. In almost every measurable statistic, children today are more advanced than their peers in generations past, but that gap disappears once they hit their adolescence. In fact, it is seen that in many measures of basic competence, the average college student gains nothing in their 4 years of study. Indeed, the figures can sometimes seem a bit overwhelming, especially when we consider what it means for us, the so-called dumbest generation, so incompetent by so many standard measures of intelligence. Flying in the face of all of this, though, is the fact that today's young adults are scoring higher than ever before on IQ tests. These tests are renormalized every few years to maintain an average of 100, but someone who scored an average score of 100 today would score a 115 in 1960. This is part of a long-standing trend in IQ scores known as the Flynn effect, that the average IQ has gone up by 3 points every decade since the test came into use. If we take it on the surface, people have been getting smarter since the 1900s. However, if it's true, over 25% of people alive today would be considered geniuses in the 1930s, and over 30% of people in 1930 would be considered below self-sufficient intelligence. Now, clearly these are two extreme cases that aren't true. 1930s America was clearly functional, and we're not currently overflowing with those of genius intelligence. They are calling us the dumbest generation after all. So what is the cause of this discrepancy? Well, it comes down to what I was talking about at the beginning, intelligence bifurcation. There has been no increase in our math ability, no expanding of our vocabulary, no advancement, perhaps even decay on these fronts. However, we've seen gains in thinking in the abstract, spatial thinking, critical thinking. These areas of thought that are so emphasized by current educators have grown, while traditional forms of intelligence are on the downtrend. So where does that leave us? Is it simply that new forms of intelligence, like new forms of media, come and go, forever improving and replacing? Unfortunately, it would seem that the answer is no. Employers and professors alike are raising the point that while critical thinking and the like are all well and good, it's all a bit useless if it's not tied to anything real, anything informed by these lower forms of thought that our generation seems to be eschewing. So that's what it is, our bifurcation of intelligence. We've grown a lot in one level of thought while shrinking on the level that makes that critical thought useful. It's just one of the fun ironies of the dumbest generation.